Hey guys, I'm going to talk about and try to promote the promotion of the reunification of North and South Korea. They were trying to do this after World War II, during the Cold War era, to try to reunify North and South Korea, because what it's really doing is causing like a lot of tensions of war, because it's been taken over by like communism and socialism, I think, or something like that. Like a communist dictatorship in the north and then a democratic relations in the south from all these exterior forces. And what it's doing is like you're like interfering and trespassing on another foreign ethnic race, and all it's doing is like it's causing a lot of tension, chaos, and war. So what we really need to do, instead of waiting, because in 2019, Korean President Moon Jae-in had proposed reunification of the two divided nations in the Korean Peninsula by 2045. And the thing is like 2045 is like probably like 20 estimate years away. And so the thing is like this needs to be done now, especially if there's been like threats of like there's been talk about nuclear, not threats, but more like talk about nuclear warfare and how countries have the capabilities to like nuke each other to mass extinction. And like there's like videos on the internet talking about how if there was like an ET species invading Earth, like we would like nuke the whole Earth to get them, to deter them to leave. And like all these kind of strategies are like paid and promoted by the ruling elite in like these videos, like the infographic videos and stuff like that. I've been watching a lot of those, and it's just really kooky that they would even think about like adding that kind of imagery into our psyche, to nuke the whole Earth to try to deter aliens away that are trying to invade us. Like, obviously they've been paid by the ruling elite to give that kind of information out, to nuke the whole Earth to try to deter ETs. And it just like, it's insane how that they would even do that. And it clearly shows like they were paid by the ruling elite to even explain that kind of like strategy. And it's totally absurd. And so like what I'm trying, and it goes with the Georgia Guidestones and how they were trying to maintain humanity at 500 million. I'm gonna open this picture right here so that you can see how what they were paid to talk about it, which is to maintain humanity under 500 million. Like this is like 100,000, 100 million. We have 8 billion people on 7 to 8 billion people on Mother Earth, and they want to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature when they destroyed nature. So they destroyed nature and they want to maintain humanity under 500 million. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. When there's 7 to 8 billion people, then why would you have all these other like guidelines that they would follow when there's only 500 million? Clearly like a big gigantic mass genocide and mass extinction is occurring because they want to steal the whole world's money. That's what it looks like, the energy of the human race, like as if it's totally enslaved. And while they hide out in their bunkers and in their bases, like Nazi bases in Agartha and stuff. And got their little doomsday bunkers. It's called a doomsday seed vault. It's not just called a regular seed vault. If it was called a regular seed vault, the whole of humanity would be like, oh, alright, we're saving our seeds here and storing it and saving it for the whole of humanity. But it's called a doomsday seed vault. And so it clearly shows like the ruling elite has been preparing to try to cause doomsday, as in the name right here. And so it's so despicable how we put up with this monetary system now from these like ancestral originated Anunnaki Sumerian prolonged heads like those are like ruling like in Egypt and stuff like that, and how there's pyramids all around the electromagnetic grid lines. And I guess like they all got like shut down to a certain extent, and it's like it's all just been like controlled by like money and stuff, and it's just like it's just been so corrupt. Like you see images like this, and like how they keep this all from the secret, so that like saucer traversing technological transportation is only allowable to the private military class and the ruling elite, and how the mass public are not able to see this kind of technology and information. It just shows like how corrupt the world leaders and ruling elite have been creating New World Order card games called World War III. Like it's a paradox. It says New World Order. Like there's an order for the world that's like supposed to put it in order, and it says World War III, and that's not order. That's chaos. And they say you need order with chaos, but chaos just brings about more chaos. And in this situation, and we don't want to extinct the human race. Like that's for sure. And like this kind of stuff, this is from the Huffington Post. This isn't like a real segment, I would suppose. It's just like some kind of fake imagery to put fear in Trump or something like that, possibly. But yeah, you can see like how Allies won World War II, and there's still like all this weird signs of like Hitler and the Nazis creating banks called Under Axis Bank. And like it's just pretty shocking how like it would go this far. Like it just shows how corrupt the bankers are, and they really don't care, and they just want to make money from the Allies and Axis side of the banking. It looks like it's so narrow-minded. Like Axis Bank, it looks like the Kia sign almost. Like it just doesn't make any sense how Axis Bank would like be created. It's insane. It's like it's just filled with like dead people's money. Same with like the Allies side, where they killed a bunch of when they were Axis, when they're all just human beings, and when they're all waging war for money and power. Like it doesn't make any sense. Once you see that people are like waging war for money, like you should probably stay away from that country. If they're waging war for power, it's involving money to control resources and power, and you pretty much want to stay away from that country, like any country that's affiliated with world wars, because it's just corruption. It's just a setup to devalue and descend one's karma, and it just, all this like war stuff for money and power, like it's really gone nowhere. It's like the inner Earth. There's entrances at the North and South Pole. More Nazi saucer technology, but Nikola Tesla had saucer patents, I think, and so it's not like crazy that Hitler did this, like this kind of information has been around since the Tesla. That's why they shut all this work down and just stole it all for their own military and financial, economic gain and purposes, and it just shows how corrupt it's gotten. And this is one of the most shocking images I've seen. It's Trump and his Nazi logo, and like how the U.S. were against the Nazis and Axis, and how his campaign symbol was at a point a Nazi logo, all secret and stuff, with the T's and the Trump, and to like control Trump, and how there's like a Nazi swastika military air force building on the western coast of America, and I don't know if I have those pictures, but I can show you how like I think like the Axis and Nazis took Moon, Mercury, possibly Venus and Mars control, and they were trying to control the world, and it looks like they totally somewhat did. And how they've been waging a war with Big Pharma because they're like big pharma is there, used by the world leaders and ruling elite and bankers to pretty much just control humanity. Like there's been subliminal ads on TV saying like, oh, they control us. And I was thinking like, oh, they can't really fully control us. And then I realized like that is actually what they're doing, because they're using big pharma and pills, the Nazis were, to go berserk during war so that they wouldn't sleep and they'd be active 24/7. And then it backfired on them because they kind of like lost sense of perception. And and then now in these recent times in 2019, especially since like 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, they've been pushing for like pills and giving labeling kids with ADHD and like depression and schizophrenia and psychosis and all these like mood and like behavioral symptoms and like disorders and stuff, when like these are all fake names and terms that they just see flaws in certain people from like the sadness of reality, and then they label it as a disease when there's already like a global problem with like wars and greed and hunger and pollution. And then they add those labels on to give big pharma even more power and money so they can drug us and control us, to sedate us and control our minds, because they were using big pharma to go berserk, to make people go berserk and stay up. And now they're controlling people to take pills that like sedate people and control people's minds to a certain extent, like as if like they only have a certain frequency, like they're tuned into a certain frequency from all those pills, and they can only think and feel a certain way, and it kind of like numbs them down and pacifies them. And so you can clearly see that all big pharma was used for by the bankers and the world leaders were, and like possibly some cult leaders, was for control of the human race. And big pharma is related to hundreds of millions of annual deaths a year, recorded by the FBI death statistics, and you could look that up online. The FBI death statistics related to big pharma fatal overdoses, and it's just insane how like they've been using big pharma to control us, and how they're still doing that to this day while I'm speaking. They're labeling, deeming people with all these disease like names and disorders, when they're just, all they're really doing is giving big pharma money. And so like that's why I never wanted to be a doctor. It just seems so scary. Like the word doctor itself seems like scary in and of itself, because like most of the time people are like saved by doctors from with surgery and stuff, from near death and stuff like that. But when it comes down to like the average like pacified doctor, all they do is prescribe out like pills and stuff, and it's related to hundreds of millions of annual deaths. And my city that I'm currently in Arlington Heights, it's been in Cook County, it's been known to traffic like an absurd amount of big pharma pills than other cities in the United States. And it clearly shows like big pharma is ravaging, destroying, murdering innocent people for money. Like they're pretty much waging a war on humanity for money. That's what they did in World War II. I think the banks collected Axis money and Allies money because in essence they're all just people, and they can easily like flip sides and turn sides. And so they killed all these people and stole all their money, it seems like. And so what they do with big pharma is like they're killing people to suck up their money, as well as just killing people. And it's just like completely waging a war on humanity and controlling humanity if it's not killing them, so that they're always under sedation. They're controlling the masses so that they don't like think outside of the norm, out of the box, of what's really going on and why people are feeling kind of scared and sad. Because it's psychotic to nuke people, to bomb people, to murder people, and think that you're creating world peace. Like that's utter psychotic behavior. Like that's psychosis. That is the definition of psychosis. Like thinking like you thinking some way, but how the world really is. That's the true definition of psychosis when it comes down to like labeling diseases and just like maladies and like faults within the human race, is to think that you can murder people and think that's like sane and that's safe, when there is obviously better ways. Jesus Christ said, "Thou shalt not murder." And so like what I'm saying is that like all this war has created so much chaos within the Korean Peninsula and all the other islands in the southeastern Asian border, like Hawaii and stuff, and how like they were nuking innocent islands near Hawaii for nuclear weapon testing, and how they had to evacuate all those cultures, those like native cultures in those islands and stuff, so they could test nuclear bombs to control people with murder and stuff. And the plot to nuke the whole Earth, saying that it's like a World War III breakout, when it's really just a disguise for the bankers to take the whole world's money and think that it would lead to like them departing Earth again, because supposedly they destroyed 2 planets and now they're here, and now they want to destroy another planet which is here on Earth and then leave again and keep enslaving like humanity and keep doing this cycle over and over again. And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. That's why there's been ETs powering off like a big portion of the leading weaponry of nuclear weapons here on Mother Earth, like in the United States. And you know, they're pretty much like we think that we have power here on Earth with nuclear power weapons and stuff, but this is all through like manipulation and like dark forces. And so clearly, like those very species that like worked with the beings to give those patents and weapons of mass destruction, like there's species within those races that would probably prevent mass extinction from occurring. And so it shows like there are relations with cosmic beings and humanity, but you can like feel the energy that we're like controlled and that we're enslaved here on Mother Earth. And so like contacting them on a public scale would mean that we would be meeting up again with like the authorities and the global governments and military. And that's what it all leads back to again. That's why I don't really want to have contact with ETs at the moment, because it would rush a bunch of global governmental agencies and people and groups like the Majestic 12 and stuff like that. And they would like try to extract data from me and then compile all the data into like one source where they collect all this UFO data and what they're doing. And I supposedly heard like they're trading like ET protection and technology for abductions at night on other continents, and that's just like ghetto as heck. And like I can't believe that would occur without people's free will's approval on an independent level, without their permission. And I just can't believe that the global world leaders, bankers, cult leaders of the world, of each continent, would think about doing that, because it clearly shows how like misbehaving the ETs can be to enact about this dark force kind of behavior. And so for political dominance, for like cosmic political dominance and like cosmic political control and economic resource control. And so it's just like a constant struggle, because the whole of humanity and like people within the regular human sectors and the mass populace, they really like, what we really need to do is stimulate like a global political activist like movement to help like preserve not just animals here on Earth, but like our very like races and ethnicities here on Earth. Like we need to create sectors to preserve the Native American race here in North America, and try to like help all those other native races in those southeastern islands like near Hawaii and Asia again, and preserve those native ethnic races. We need to make sure that there's always peace maintained live, or else everything will crumble and the percentage of mass extinction would increase. We need to put Korea back together, and all this destruction that's occurred, like we need to like give independence and sovereign back to those countries that were infiltrated and taken over for monetary and power reasons, because we've come to a point now where we've passed the line of like living here on Mother Earth. Like we should be extinct, or like the majority of the world should be like, there should be parts of the world that should be destroyed. and the fact that like ETs are taking care of us, it clearly shows like they have a lot of power. The ETs that are taking care of us, they're at a higher living standard of civilization. They have clearly harnessed like galactic and universal power, it seems. So they're like type 3, type 4, type 5 civilization. They probably have and are relating with parallel dimensional universal, multi-universal, omniversal technology and powers as well. So they would clearly be like type 5 civilization if they have the power and the defense and the pioneering endeavors to stop mass extinction and atomic nuclear warfare. And clearly I realized, and I was understanding and analyzing, like humanity needs to learn from its mistakes, or it's going to keep repeating the same cycle. And there's going to be like Geneva Conventions to help promote like the living standards of POWs and prisoners of war. But the very fact that they're even having a Geneva Convention to do that, like they haven't really gone all the way. The Geneva Convention, there's been like I know for a fact there's been at least like 4 Geneva Conventions since World War I. And so what they need to do to pretty much fully enlighten humanity is to end all forms of physical, nuclear, atomic, mental, spiritual, emotional, etheric, astral, sexual, like multi-parallel dimensional war itself in general in the universe. Like we need to create laws, pacts, acts, and treaties on a global scale to do that, so that we can promote galactic peace and become galactic and eventually universal. So God made the universe. In the Bible it states we must be in the image of God. God wants us to be in the image of God. God needs us to be in the image of God, or else we will be extinct. And so since God made the universe, we realize that like destruction and chaos hinders the possibilities of becoming universal on an exponential scale. I'm not talking about like just regular evolution. I'm talking about like exponential evolution, like evolution that is exponentially evolving and is like a rolling snowball of evolution and decreasing and preventing mass extinction on a universal scale. And so that's what humanity's job is in the universe. If it wants to become from this micro-earthly solar system state to a macro-universal type 5 civilization, if it wants to evolve, it needs to be in alignment with the creator of the universe, and that's God, and that's like this overwhelming power of love. Like it's not just power, it's the power of the love. It's like power is just a facet, and it's like an essence in describing the degree and the sheer magnitude and the scale and the velocity and the propensity of the amount, the proportions, the infinite, the immortal, the eternal proportions of the love that God manifests. That's what we need to delve upon, that kind of holistic spiritual information, because that's the kind of energy and information that is vibrating, that is, the frequency is living. It's the definition of like life to the most efficient, purest, holistic, authentic, genuine, true, and real sense. Because if humanity wants to learn from its mistakes. So if like someone kills you and you kill them, it's like this retaliation process that just keeps happening for power or for vengeance or for retaliation. And humanity just needs to learn from its mistakes and help evolve and create world peace laws to become peaceful, so that we have a clear and safe environment to live, to educate, to learn, to love, to evolve from a type 0 to type 1 civilization. In my eyes, humanity has been delving with ET technology since Tesla, since the 1900s. And so it's 2019, October 4th, 2:32 p.m. USA Central Standard Time. And so what we need to do as a human race to prevent and decrease all percentage chances of mass extinction, is to make this into a sector so that we may become universal. And the main core is going to be love, like world peace. And, these are all, like, facets and descriptions of love, like the almighty, again, infinite, immortal, eternal power of love. And so that's what humanity needs to do. Humanity needs to stop destroying, stop taking over, and preserve the Native American race in the United States of America, because this was Native American land. And you can see that these governmental bankers and patriots that were considered patriots, they murdered and slaughtered. There were some cases where it was peaceful, but the fact that there were cases of murder and slaughter that clearly was exposed right away at school, from elementary school, that, this is like a very violent setting to live upon. So, like, to make this into a very safe place, an earth and environment, so that we may, like, live to become universal and not become extinct, as there's been talk and prophecies, we need to, like, change the course of history dramatically and promote the reunification of Korea and leave Korea alone to be independent. And I stand as like an owner of a future mothership, to give every country its own independence, so that it has its own freedom and not be taken over by a giant force that is in opposition with the human race in and of itself. Like, it needs to be, if, like, there's a country that's going to be aligned with a force, it's going to be a global unification force to unify the whole of humanity, so it's never at war with its acts, laws, pacts, and treaties that are always maintained live every day, 24/7 by the nanosecond. And this includes on a multi-parallel dimensional level, to feel the holistic essence of, like, love in the universe, in this omniverse. And so once we can create world peace laws, help Korea become reunified again, help preserve the Native American race, help preserve all ethnicities here on Mother Earth. Like, we would need to create a sector literally to preserve every single ethnic race here on Mother Earth for total equality and care for the whole of humanity on Mother Earth. And eventually create sectors to preserve other species and races on for other species here on Mother Earth. So just in case if, like, a certain race of a species is going extinct, like possibly like what may happen here on Mother Earth, we can help preserve that and start becoming, like, universally friendly, to show that we can demonstrate and be responsible of universal actions, like preserving other endangered races within species that are sentient, and clearly show that we have a mark in the universe as a goal to become universal. So to lay out this path to become universal, it's about being in the image of God, which is love and world peace. So since mass extinction would not occur, and that clearly demonstrates the safety required to promote world peace and become universal as a species in the universe. And, like, when I was young, I was thinking about, like, all these schools like Harvard and Stanford and, like, Princeton and all these top universities and stuff. And, like, I just felt kind of scared of all these, like, universities as well when I was young, like, intuitionally, like, deep within. It just seemed weird, like, I didn't really want to go there, like, it just seemed kind of like a setup, like, it's scary. And then I realized, and I'm looking and researching, because I like learning by myself, and I tend to learn the most by myself, and I tend to educate myself the quickest, and that's the quickest way I learn. And I realized that Stanford and Princeton and Harvard, all these places have, like, cult ties with, like, skulls and bones and people doing demonic sacrifices and rituals to children, innocent children and stuff. And those were the locations where they invented, like, weapons of mass destruction and, like, chemical warfare, atomic, nuclear, hydrogen, like, chemical bombs and stuff. Like, those are the places where they're creating these weapons of mass destruction. So I thought school would be about, like, promoting world peace and safety and love and stuff like that, because that's what keeps humanity going. And clearly you go to school to teach others to not murder people. And when school isn't doing that, then it becomes the religious sector's duty to help the schools out to promote the ending of murder, of innocent murders and hostage and jailing and enslavement and control and pollution. Like, the churches seem to have been controlled to that degree, and it seems like the churches itself on a global scale and the religious sectors need to come forth and work with the schools to help promote world peace and to end murder, because this is helping to evolve humanity from a type 0 to a type 1 civilization and preventing the percentage chances of mass extinction. And so it just seems insane, people go to school and to learn to educate and to know to not murder people. If you murder someone in your class, you'd go to jail. It clearly shows you're being educated to not murder people. And then people are being drafted into the army, joining the military to go to war. Like, it's a paradox again. It just does not make a single sense. And then they get tricked with money because they need money to live, for resources, to go to school eventually if they can live from war and not be so, shaken by it. And it clearly shows, again, people were saying during World War I and World War II, if you say you have PTSD from war, it's like showing that you're weak, when clearly there's a sense of shock clearly seen by individuals in humanity from war that clearly shows if a person is in shock and is scared and traumatized from war and the violence and the physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, sexual violence of war and the astral, etheric, supernatural, paranormal aspects of war, that clearly show there's a problem with war, and that there's a mistake that humanity made, and that war needs to stop. So every time you see the U.S. bombing other countries, you see oil reserves, you see UN buildings, you see people bombing each other itself in general, whether they're allies, axes, a group, a certain group name, it's not good. It clearly shows that humanity, or the individual species, needs to learn from its mistake if it wants to evolve to a higher type of civilization and become universal, to become like an immortal race, like an eternal and infinite species as a whole. And our job is to do that for all species in the universe of gods, to help enlighten and to prevent all this pollution and to prolong life and to promote sentience, and which is love, the almighty power of God's love, to prevent war and murders, and help evolve education and to help evolve our understanding of God's love, as well as a science, so that we can clearly see, scientifically, the energetic vibrations of love is greater than fear, because it helps to prolong the longevity of life and encompasses love and care for all universal beings in the universe, when war and physical destruction seems to get out of control to the point of mass extinction, where they're creating Georgia Guidestones that want to maintain humanity at 500 million when there's 7 to 8 billion people. So you can clearly see that the education system has been abused. That's why there's been protests and riots in Latin America for the past 10 years and towards their government, because the education system has been abused. And if the education system has been abused, then clearly, most of the people start at school. And so it seems as though the religious sectors are being bribed and paid to speak for the ruling elite and the rich, because they're the ones paying them, so they think they have control over the churches, when the churches need to do whatever they can to do their own scientific research, when religion and science meet, to end innocent murders. So the science of love shows that love is clearly more powerful, especially if it's keeping humanity alive, and to the point where it's preventing and ceasing mass extinction. So you can clearly see the science of God's love is evidently more powerful. And you don't have to believe in God, because God gave us free will, but you want to find out what is creating love, like true love, almighty, powerful, infinite, eternal, immortal love. Not like a fake love, like a love for murder, for money, for power, but a love for love itself. Like the bare core of love, the essence of love. We need to find out, like, divinity, royalty. Royalty would be extinct if humanity was maintained at under 500 million. The true definition of royalty is like divinity, is God. Because if you are immortal like God, that's the definition of like immortality, of infinity, of like eternity, of love. Like that's how powerful it is. Like it's immortal. And so it's like it's impossible to like destroy the whole universe. It seems like it just seems unethical. It seems like it would just literally be impossible with the multi-parallel dimensions and stuff, and how we can create multi-parallel universes like that, and like even like traverse and mesh so that mass extinction is like just not a thing of the past, but it's running off of power and energy of species in the universe. And so if we want to become universal and help all species to become universal and not extinct, we need to evolve, create world peace laws, help preserve species and races, and give their independence back, and allow for Korea to become reunified again. So I'm like as a political activist within me side as well, I want to help reunify Korea again as soon as possible, prior to 2045, so that we feel safe, so that the world is unified. It's like a United Nations. It seems paradoxical to have the United Nations when there's countries that are split and torn apart by other exterior countries. Clearly there is no unification. So to truly make the United Nations a real organization and like a nation, like an alliance, a group of people, it would need to help promote the reunification of Korea. So I'm letting you guys know that the United Nations is going to be bugged, slacking, until it helps promote the reunification of North and South Korea to become Korea again. Then it will be unified. Then it will relate to the name United, the United Nations. So I'm letting United Nations leader know that it's clear and evident that people have been curious about Area 51 and all the corruption that has occurred. How there's been videos clearly exposing the setting up of bombs in business buildings, like in 9/11, for war propaganda. They've been using this tactic for hundreds of years, and it still seems to work somehow. It's very sad. That's how enslaved the humanity is, and how distraught it is from the lifestyle and the living conditions that it's been living in. It's just like the world needs to, the United Nations, if they're a really rich ruling elite, they need to be real, authentic, genuine, and we need to raise our vibration and follow God to become universal, to create the mothership for Mother Earth. And like it seems like I need to take my life elixir so that we can create the mothership for Mother Earth, because if I die and I explain the instructions of how to build a mothership and how to get to building a mothership, and if I'm not there, the person that was given the responsibility and the foresaw the vision of a mothership from my work that leads to a mothership, clearly you guys aren't going to be able to build a mothership that is of mine. It's like stealing my work. It's like stealing all of my information and who I am, when all souls are individual, to create a mothership for your own universal or intergalactic powers, when my plan is to be universal. And so it would hinder our universal possibilities and chances as well for humanity from Mother Earth to become where it currently is to become universal. And so like if people try to like assassinate me, murder me, hostage me, imprison me, torture me, abuse me, drug me, which they have done, then clearly it would hinder the possibility and the chances of humanity becoming universal. There's been a lot of talk about like Greta Thurman or something like that, like a political activist that's paid to talk about global climate change. And all of my work encompasses like climate change, the ending of war, and so that we can create a safe environment to learn and to live and to learn, to love, so we may create a mothership. And like motherships are like an extension of our body, of our soul, of our being, of humanity. And so it needs to be as pure as possible, non-polluted as possible. And so, like, that's what the United Nations need to do. The United Nations is going to be not as strong, not as trusted, until it can unify Korea again as soon as possible. Then it would be considered the United Nations, because then they would be doing their jobs to keep countries reunified and whole, instead of splitting them for political and economic power and resources and infrastructure, for money or for power. Like, that game is becoming old, destructive, and outdated, and it's leading to a lot of trouble, where the whole of humanity can wake up and say, hey, war itself is done. We are done with global warfare. On an oceanic level, on an air level, on a space nearby galactic level, on a galactic level, on a universal level, on an interplanetary level, on an interdimensional level, on an emotional, mental, physical, sexual, astral, etheric level. War, we need to create a sector itself to find out all these methods of war and to end it completely, so that we maintain 100% an ever-evolving type of civilization within humanity to become eternal, infinite, and eternal, and certain individuals to become immortal that are responsible, or with life elixirs like me, to help promote the universal endeavors of humanity to become a universal and not just intergalactic. And so we should be able to wake up to that truth. Like we can gain ET technology through material resources, through gold, through resources on Earth, through, at the worst case scenario, letting people abduct people in other continents or their own countries or continents for ET protection or power. And that, like, people, like, that has happened before. But the thing is that I want to be as efficient as possible, and we are all related and interconnected in the universe, and we're all entangled, quantumly entangled in the universe. So if I want humanity to be as efficient as possible, it'll help promote and give off and rub off that energy and vibe of other beings, efficient and responsible and efficient itself in the truest, most authentic and genuine sense. In God's name, I am power. And so we need to promote world peace, and this is a call for all world leaders to pretty much make the United Nations the United Nations and evolve from type 0 to type 1 civilization, so that we don't become extinct, and so that the Georgia Guidestone rules or guidelines don't occur. And someone really needs to look at the Georgia Guidestones within the United Nations and make public about what is really going on and what has been trying to be going on, and that we are reversing and switching the trend of mass extinction, and instead going into the opposite direction and promoting the infinity and the eternalization of the human species and all species within the universe and in the Omniverse. That's what we need to convey as our message to the mass public, to show that we do have an outline, that we do have a path that is set forth for humanity to become universal, not just intergalactic. And though that's what we need to do. And other than that, if we don't do that, we're not going to evolve to a type 1 civilization. And if Korea is like destroyed and still split, it shows that the United Nations is split and fragmented. And so if we can reunify Korea, then it'll just reunify the United Nations and show that the United Nations is somewhat reliable, trustworthy, and a nation that is for its core value, which is world peace. That's what it was funded and created for, was world peace. And so if it wants to be true about its core ethnic values and its reason for existence as the United Nations, it would need to help pretty much like every country to promote world peace, which should and want and need to help Korea become reunified again. And so that the United Nations can demonstrate to the world and tell the mass public that it helped reunify Korea, and that it's doing its job as the United Nations, unifying countries again and reunifying countries to end world wars on all scales, and global war itself, to end it, to cease it on all levels: mental, emotional, physical, sexual, etheric, astral, multidimensional, on a solar system, intergalactic, and universal level. We need to create sectors on Mother Earth within the United Nations to promote this kind of live world peace, galactic world peace, universal world peace group as a sector, because if that gets dwindled, shut down, and isn't doing its job to become universal with its main captain, God, then the love won't be there. We'll realize that it's not giving out love, and like it needs to like show like a vibratory essence of love, God's love, not just resource love, but God's love. It's like spiritual information of being awakened and enlightened. And so, like I did all these hallucinogenics. I did DMT. I made the DMT experience video. If I wouldn't have shut it down for the fear of the FBI coming into my home and questioning me why I made this video, do I have a relation with other people with DMT, I wouldn't have deleted that video, and it would have had millions of views by now. Like even Joe Rogan was tagging my name to get views about and expose information about the enlightening nature of the universe and DMT and dimethyltryptamine, and how it's a natural substance, chemical that occurs in the pineal gland in the center of the human brain, that becomes generated when like we sleep, in REM sleep, in the stages of dreaming. And so I'm like learning it all, and I've done some psychedelics. I haven't done mescaline, peyote, cactus. I haven't really done ayahuasca vine rituals. And I don't really like delving into like ketamine or speed or big pharmaceutical pills. And I realized like it's like the reason, existence, topics of meaning, reason, existence, purpose, of existence of human life itself, of all beings in the universe. And I've been thinking a lot about that, and like meditating and trying to analyze what God wants us to do, because when it comes to darkness and evil and violence, it's not a good feeling. That's why people come back from war traumatized and shaking. And then I realized like God's love heals all of that. The degree of God's love can heal wounds from war. Like that's the supernatural, holy, divine, royal, paranormal essence of love of God. It's not even paranormal. It's like just considered like supernaturally divine, or like divine, royal, supernatural of God. And the definition of the explanation of that would be the love of God, as explained by many near-death experience prisoners of war, people that were in the military. They were, military is a violent place, and God doesn't want us to be violent. That's what He said. That's what God told Him to say, to tell us, to explain to us. That's the degree and the essence of God's love, and how like people don't want to come back to Earth because it's so dark. And that's the same feeling that I had, but it's like we're here for a purpose, and we need to do our job and to follow God and to give out information about how much more powerful God's love is, how much better God's love is, and how real God's love is, and like how real the science of the love of God is real, because it can heal people that were from war. Like it can just make people feel completely better. And like the degree of power of love, like the degree of power of sentience and intelligence and wisdom and intuition that is available to people when they die and reincarnate, as they evolve, like as a soul through the age of the soul and the oversoul. Like that's been explained as well, how people have like can feel like the whole galaxy and the whole universe and be aware of it all at one time, like God, the creator of it all. And but it's like our job as the living image of God, like the replications of God, to do what God wants us to do, which is to promote God's love, and how it's like a spiritual entity soul like connection, like a personal connection with God. And you can see like how we need to have like a big group and a collection of souls following God, because energy is produced by the masses. Energy equals mc squared, mass consciousness squared. And if we can have like a bunch of people following God more and promote the love of God, then we can enlighten people to show that there are dark forces that are trying to control for the sheer fear of what they have done, it seems like. And we just need to like understand that it's like the money will be there and everything will be safe. The banks will be safe. The governments will be safe. You know, they've made a lot of mistakes. You look at the Georgia Guidestone itself. They're trying to start mass extinction from 7 to 8 billion people to 500 million. That's like 99% of the human race. And you know, the nuclear weapon testing of like Russia, of America, of like the whole world pretty much, and how it has nukes. Like it's just gone too far. It clearly demonstrates that the Georgia Guidestone maintained humanity at 500 million. That was a real plan. That was a real strategy to nuke the whole world, saying it's at war for like political reasons, when behind it it's the bankers funding the politics for money, for the whole world's money. Nuke the whole world, kill the whole world for all its money, for the third time on a different third planet supposedly. I learned about information from David Wilcock how humanity originated, like the originators of humanity originated supposedly from 2 other planets that were destroyed, and this is not going to be the third planet. You know, the third strike and you're out. Do you know what that means? We would be completely out. We would be extinct. It doesn't lead to the whole money. It leads to a big scheme controlled by the oversoul, possibly of what my theory is Napoleon Bonaparte or Adolf Hitler, who lost the war and saw that this world was just like unjust and there was just like an unsurmountable abusive power from Rothschild family, and that's why he started war to try to take over the European Union and pretty much the whole world, because that's what Rothschild family was doing, and the Rockefellers, and how he failed. And so I had like visions thinking like he, as Napoleon Bonaparte, past reincarnation, said if I cannot take over Rothschild family banks, which is like the whole world's banking infrastructure, that's why he was trying to take over the whole world, he said, and take over Germany, when he's really Austrian-Hungarian and he's not German. So it clearly doesn't make any sense that the Germans thought they were using him for political power and dominance to see if they can gain more money, when in essence he was just stealing from them, the Rothschild family, because they wanted to see if they could just use him for money, when he was trying to take them over because that was his like planned out soul mission. And you know, like he speaks as Napoleon Bonaparte, I had a vision saying that like if I cannot reincarnate and take over Rothschild family banks, I will end the whole world. And so he couldn't take over Rothschild family banks and the whole world, so he's trying to end the whole world now. And so that Georgia Guidestone, I just see like all of this plot accumulated by Hitler, because he had a meeting with the Draconians with like a big platoon in Europe, and he got ET technology, he got saucers, he got information about weapons. And clearly, if you're going to get information about saucers and beings that are older than us, they're going to have elixirs and life elixirs and know more about the elements and the table of elements and what creates a life elixir, and which bacteria and organisms help create life elixirs. So clearly, he may have gotten a hold of life elixirs. And so then he's using that to try to cause mass extinction, as clearly shown on the Georgia Guidestones, by manipulating all the world leaders and bankers, like, and all those ruling bloodlines that have been going on for thousands of years. And he is like brainwashing them to say, oh, I have connections with ETs, I have starship powers that we could travel to a different cosmos. This would be the third planet destroyed, and we would go to a different cosmos, different planet, and settle there and keep doing this cycle all over again. But the thing is like third strike and you're out. And so something about baseball, and it's just a plot for Hitler to try to brainwash all the ruling elite bloodlines, the bankers and the world leaders, to nuke the whole earth for all its money. And they've been known to do that, to go to war for money and power. So it's clear he knows how to trick them and brainwash them easily with these warlike tactics. Mass extinction with atomic bombs on a global scale isn't just some mishap in political like propaganda. It's straight up war for money and power, like resources and dominance and control over the human consciousness. And it's a big plot, and that's why you've heard that the rich have their own bunkers and stuff, and they got a seed vault. But they're not really that intelligent. Like, if they were intelligent, they would have reunified Korea. They would have made sure that like the Native Americans have like their own like state itself, not just like a little preservation, but maybe possibly even like a portion of the country regained back to Native America and the Native Americans, to preserve the Native Americans. Like, that would be good as well. Like, it's just a plot to have all of them go into their bunkers. The whole world would have been extinct. All those ruling elite bloodlines would have murdered everyone for their money. They would have eventually ran out of food, and then the time would have come and been like, oh, it's time to travel to the next planet, the fourth planet now. And it was just a setup by the Nazi, like the Hitler's crew, which I possibly thought were Napoleon's bodyguards that reincarnated with Adolf Hitler. And this is all like super deep information that I'm like gaining through meditation and stuff, and like not just like information from the internet. And so I don't know if this is like personal information or like top secret information, but and then he was trying to set all those ruling elite family bloodline that he showed that he was trying to take over the world and take over the banks and gain a large portion, and they didn't want that because they would have lost a lot of money and power, as seen by the Rockefellers. I think like they were at an unsurmountable amount of money, and then they just lost it completely down to like 1 to 2% of what they had, and because of all the other people like with money like creating all these like schemes. I guess I'm not really too sure about the Rockefellers, but what I'm trying to get is that it was a plan set up by the Nazis, or Axis forces, or Hitler's forces to be more precise, Hitler's boys and girls and recruitments, and they were going to hide in the operation. So I'm gonna open this and like I just like foresaw the future of what they were trying to do. And so you see I gotta find the Doomsday Seed Vault picture again to show you guys what they were really trying to do. So you see the entrance. They were gonna enter the Doomsday Seed Vault once everyone was nuked after a few months, and they were going to grab their seeds and go to a different planet and colonize a different planet. I see this now, and you can see that there is this thing called the control room, where it controls the vaults, the high security, the refrigeration units, the seed stacking. It controls like everything. There's probably cameras everywhere. It's considered the control room. And the thing is, it's like the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, I think they had relations with like Norwegians, I think, and so the Seed Vault is like around there up north, and so I think they used military, obviously, and they created this Seed Vault, as like a secret plot in disguise, with other Nazi Axis related people still secretly cooperating in the European continent, or in some parts of the world. Like there's a Nazi military building in Coronado, California, where it's an airspace Nazi military building. It's a Nazi symbol that controls the airspace, air, the moon, Mars, Venus, just like trying to control the solar system. And I see Tom DeLonge's Angels and Airwaves thing as another example of trying to control like the air, the consciousness, as above, so below. So if it's as above, so below, you control above, and you control below. And I think that's what the Nazi Coronado Air Force building is meant for. And it seems like we got infiltrated, the U.S. got infiltrated, or it just the bankers and the global politicians all became corrupt. I think it was created after JFK got assassinated, and just like the whole U.S. infrastructure got infiltrated after JFK got assassinated, because that's a president, and we were allies, and if an allies president, when we were allies and JFK got assassinated as like the upcoming president after World War II, then it clearly shows like there was some kind of like retaliation stemming from like a source, which would be Hitler. That's my guess. With his moon Nazi bases and his Antarctican bases, Mars, Venus bases. And so, okay, let me get back to the subject of here on Earth and how Hitler, I see as though Hitler created this seed vault. And so, okay, this is called the control room. And okay, everyone was planned to do what they do, and this is the third planet destroyed, let's say, and they were going to go to the next planet with the seeds in the seed vault. That's why it's like nuclear proof, so that they can grab the seeds if it gets nuked by someone, like just like some foreign force, and it's nuke proof. And so the ruling elite, the world leaders like Rockefeller, Amschel, Mayer Rothschild, Barack Obama, possibly the Bush family, the Rothschild family, like Goldman Sachs, all these other bankers like J.P. Morgan. I think they were going to go to the seed vault at a certain time once they were going to get ready to go to the next planet and colonize the next planet. And I think they were going to set up this reincarnation scheme to constantly gain power and control the next planet and pretty much create like a living replica of like this hell on Earth, like somewhat. It's like duality. And the Nazis were going to hide here. Adolf Hitler was going to hide here, and Hitler's militia was going to hide here. And they were going to come in, grab the seed vaults, and everyone was going to get Valentine's Day massacred in like a machine gun rapid like style succession. And all of these world leaders were going to be tricked to cause mass extinction for the whole world's money. The population would have been weaker. They would have felt as it was safe and the whole world is theirs and there's like no one living and that they control everything, when it's really just a big setup for Hitler to hide his forces here. And then supposedly the Rothschild family, known for their dominance for money and power and ruthlessness for money and power, Amschel, Mayer Rothschild and Rothschild family were going to kill their own bankers, their own world leaders, by going into this control room to grab a machine gun. And while everyone is already in here, and Amschel, Mayer Rothschild and Rothschild family end up coming in last, they were going to go in here, and while they're unexpected, they were just going to machine gun everyone. But the thing is that the moment Amschel, Mayer Rothschild opens this door, he was going to get blasted by Hitler's militia forces, and then everyone would have been massacred by Hitler's militia forces because they would have not known what it was going on at all. And that they probably have like sauces and stuff and they could leave quicker, and they have all this secret technology hiding out and stuff. And that was going to happen. And then you think, oh, well then you're saying pretty much Hitler set up everyone and tricked everyone to cause mass extinction, to take over the whole world and extinct the whole world and take the whole world's resources and monetary income, and pretty much just like set up everyone and killed everyone, like all the bankers. Well, the thing is like third strike and you're out when it comes to mass extinction. And so karma comes quick. some people might not believe in karma, but it's like it's pretty much the same quote from the Bible: you reap the seeds you sow. And so if Hitler kills people, and especially like everyone, then his economic infrastructure would collapse, because his militia and infrastructure was like held bound by the bankers and the Rothschild family. And so he brainwashed them, manipulated them, controlled them, tricked them, controlled the future, prophesized, and used sin like greed, lust, wrath, gluttony, pride, and tricked them to do this. And so karma would occur. Like, you reap the seeds you sow. You murder someone, you go to hell. It's going to be like hell, like trouble. And so then what was going to happen was, I foresaw that Hitler's forces were going to try to turn in on themselves to try to gain power. And their economic infrastructure would have collapsed and crumbled, because they would have been at war with each other, and because that would have been the remaining survivors. And then it would have gotten so bad to a point where Hitler, he's been operating and orchestrating all of this crazy mass extinction like properties, like ideologies for money and power, trying to copy Rothschild family and like take over the Rothschild family and the bankers. And so and then the thing is that Hitler's militia would have been dwindled, because they would have been fighting for that money and power that they possessed from killing everyone, and they would have been dwindled, and what would have been left was Hitler killing off his bloodline, and then everyone would have been extinct, because everyone has their ties to the cosmic species when it comes to like a mass extinction like level. That's why they're shutting down nuclear weapon sites that could cause pretty much mass extinction, and they're stopping it prior to my arrival here on Mother Earth. And Hitler would have been dead through ETs as like one of the final survivors of it all, who created all this mass extinction, and he would have been eaten alive until like the elixir was destroyed out of his possession, the Ankh of reincarnation was destroyed out of his possession. Like, it would have just been like completely over. Like, the thin string of like constantly hopping star systems to enslave beings for money, power, and resources and energy, like that would have been done. And I think the Mantis would have made sure of that by literally like using the mantids mandibles that are billions of years old, that are known to be older than humanoids possibly, and they would have eaten the Ankh out of Hitler's soul, out of his possession, out of their like ruling possession of like Egyptian hieroglyphs and like powers and tools, and to constantly reincarnate here on Mother Earth. And I think that's what they did. They shut down the Egyptian infrastructure because they knew how to like travel the stars, they knew how to reincarnate and be at a certain position at a certain time and reincarnate into a certain person. And so they took Egypt over to take over all of their information and tools, so that the ruling elite could have control over their power and resources to reincarnate, to create the mess that has been created now. And so it's like there doesn't really seem to be much rapid evolution in the eco-friendly infrastructure department. There has been bombings of like supposedly like oil reserves and UN buildings, and like bombing an oil reserve, I guess, is bad because it would cause a lot of destruction and pollution. But it's even worse if there's people involved in it, from the pollution aftermath or the very destruction and the targeting of the people itself within the oil reserve or UN buildings or just anywhere in general involving bombings. And we need to create world peace laws so that this stops, all these bombings of innocent people and locations and places and resources, and war completely stops. So, but then people are going to think like, oh, if there's no more war, there's no more murder, and we can't take over rich, corrupt bankers that are abusing their power, controlling politicians and the judges and the government and the very mass populace. well, then we can't do anything about it. You know, we're gonna keep living oppressed. But the thing is that they're out of resources as well. They tried nuking the whole Earth on October 13, 2016 ADC, and the Galactic Federation of Light was there, and they were catching atomic bombs that were being dropped. And I'm the spiritual medium, and I still remember, and I will not forget to this day, how I was the spiritual medium for that. And so I feel as though I have somewhat of a job, responsibility, and duty to expose this kind of information to you guys, because it feels like I have responsibility over the human race and a job to protect the human race from mass extinction, especially as a spiritual medium born here on Mother Earth as a humanoid. Like, that would be my job. Like, I am the first person one of the first people to relay information to when it comes to a mothership for the human species and the Galactic Federation of Light and the human ancestral origin. And because I foresaw the vision of a mothership with my eco-friendly work and my power and infrastructure to prevent mass extinction and to prolong human life for thousands of years, and it led to a mothership. And so and then the fact that on like 4 years after foreseeing the mothership, I'm meditating and spiritually on my bed, and I feel communication and intelligence and information, like telepathy and like foreseeing like visions of the eastern coast getting bombed, because that's where like all the head honcho, like communication, like everything, like the majority of like what goes on and what's like controlling the U.S. is on the eastern coast, and it was about to get nuked. And you know, the Galactic Federation of Light caught those atomic bombs. The warships that were being sent to the eastern coast from the Middle East, those were deterred and they went back through the help of holy gurus and stuff. And so, like, you see, like, from what they have done, even prior to my birth, how the cosmic sentient beings had to shut down nuclear weapon plantations so that they wouldn't be used, like 25%. That's a lot. That clearly shows like mass extinction was on their agenda, and it's like they've run out of like power, like they've run out of like people trust. Like, look at Area 51. They were trying to like storm and raid it and find out all the information because they know that they're hiding secrets. And then you clearly see that they're using Tom DeLonge to expose Area 51, like the information of extraterrestrials now, and disclosing it, partial disclosure. That's what David Wilcock said. And so, if the people band together, the government will be in fear because there's more people, and the cosmic beings there in the Galactic Federation of Light and holy extraterrestrials are there to shut down nuclear weapons so that mass extinction doesn't occur. And so, what the people need to do is to band together and use what we have for the positive now, and help them to not be tricked into causing mass extinction for the whole world's money, destroying planets and to enslave people for power and dominance. That's over. We need to create a law, pact, act, and treaty in itself of that on a galactic and universal level, starting from this planet Earth, so that that's kind of stuff and behavior stops. And so that mass extinction does not occur, because that is the most dreadful, horrid, pretty much rock bottom thing you want any kind of species to encounter, especially if they're like sentient and they can help preserve species by traveling in the past and the future eventually. And so, and how they would see that would affect their current position in the universe. And so that's what humanity needs to do. It does work when people band together like millions and try to promote like the disclosure of ETs and like Area 51 and stuff. They will come forth and expose that it's real. And so now that we see that they will listen to the people, that because the people are what makes up the government, then we should be able to do something that's even more important, and we know that they will listen to us to a certain extent, and which is to create world peace. And the United Nations can say, oh, we're going to create these world peace treaties, these world peace laws, these world peace acts and pacts, but it's not going to be authentic. It's not going to be true if there's countries and continents that have native species that have been infiltrated and taken over, then it won't be true. So I'm kind of like, because it's like we should have all been extinct. So it seems like I'm kind of like operating and managing and organizing this whole like UN thing and like what they're doing, because it seems as though they've like run out of power. Like, clearly they know that solar panels are friendly and how Germany's leading in that. When if they're leading in that, they should have pretty much by now switched 100% to solar power. Like, there should be no radioactive power, at least, like no harmful chemical power infrastructures. And so it's as if like the bankers kind of ran out of power for control over like how to control the human race, and it just, all it does is just seem to death and war. And so we need to change the course of history dramatically right now, and we need to change ourselves and to change without, and we need to be peaceful and learn that we need to care for all of each other on here on Mother Earth as one whole human species, and especially for other species like Atlantis or water beings that are sentient, and treat them as equal as well, and create world peace laws on a global level. And I'm just trying to like trying to introduce Atlanteans and stuff like that, and people from Agartha, beings from Agartha that have highly evolved technology, and pretty much like showing to them as well that we can demonstrate that we need to focus on world peace. And again, world peace on a global level is required first, and that requires the reunification of Korea, the preservation of Native Americans, the preservation of all ethnicities on Mother Earth itself, and like pretty much giving like a state or a portion of the U.S. back to the Native Americans, allowing or possibly allowing the natives that were evacuated from those islands from nuclear weapon testing in the Southeast Asian portions and Hawaiian portions to live in the native portions given to the Native Americans, like not just a state or a preservation. I'm talking about like a whole state, like multiple states, like a big chunk of the United States back to the Native Americans. So that, again, this is what creates war if you don't do this, if you don't help preserve the native ethnicities, because it just leads to destruction and infiltration. And if it leads to destruction and infiltration, they're willing to do that for the whole of the masses, and they did that with the whole of humanity in Europe, to the point where they controlled them to act barbaric and murder. So it's like this like demonic plague of power that has destroyed the Native Americans. Like not all were violent, but there was a lot of violence. Like a lot of the Native Americans were dead. And so like if they would have come off as peaceful, there would have been a higher chance of like a mixed Caucasian and Native American sector in this country, what is known as the United States of America, or what is known as Native American land. And it would have just been more of like a peaceful cooperation. It would have just been much more peaceful. There would have been much more spiritual advancement and technology. We would have been connected to the galaxy more, because that's what the Native Americans were known for like all like communicating with the stars and like the navigation of the stars, and how they were using psychedelics to talk with other cosmic beings. And so it requires a bunch of steps to promote and manifest and create galactic peace laws, treaties, acts, and pacts with the Galactic Federation of Light. There are steps, and it requires the unification of Korea, the preservation of all ethnicities, the preservation of the Native American species, and giving them a portion of the United States, not just preservation or land. And then once we preserve those species and ethnicities and races, and give their land back and reunify countries, and give countries to the natives that were evacuated for violent weapons and pollutive, toxic, radioactive warfare that seems to be leading to mass extinction, we would then, after been doing that, we would need to create, after we help preserve those ethnicities so that they're alive, we can't like take any time and slack. We need to right away do this stuff and preserve the ethnicities, holy ethnicities, the native ethnicities, reunify the countries so they're independent again, and leave them alone, and not and create and then create a world peace law, act, and pact treaty. Okay, and then we can't jump from the world humanity to the Galactic Federation of Light and become galactic right away like that. It's going to require a global world act, pact, treaty with the Atlanteans and the Lemurians, if those aquatic species are still alive, that are sentient, and the Agarthans as well from Inner Earth. This requires the whole of Mother Earth to unify and connect and communicate with each other via like computer and stuff, like instant communication. That's the point that we need to get to on a world peace level. Like that requires world peace. It's not gonna come from military, monetary, economic resource power. That's gonna dwindle their view and perception on life, and on a universal level. And so we need to do this for love, for world peace, to end, prevent, divert, decrease the chances and percentage chances of mass extinction here on Mother Earth. And so it seems as though the beings underground in Agartha are too scared of what has been happening here on Mother Earth that they can't even seem to stop the war that's been occurring. Maybe they were helping in tune with the Galactic Federation of Light and those kind of sentient species and beings to shut down those nuclear power plants. It's coming from Inner Earth. They're saying that we're too violent. And so at this point, it's like I feel as though I am a spiritual medium, and that helped become a spiritual medium for atomic bomb catching. And I'm like one of the first people to relay to information to and communicate to show that they're catching atomic bombs and that we're safe and that we're not going to become extinct. And so it feels like, alright, then I have somewhat of a responsibility for the human race and the human species and all species on Mother Earth, because it would have been destroyed in the care. And so I'm kind of like, I'm there as like a tower of God to preserve the human species and to keep the human species and all species on Mother Earth and in the universe eternal and infinite and eternal. And so I would obviously see that, okay, I do have responsibility and power and duties to create a mothership then, because a mothership would entitle masses of people, billions of people in the mothership, and the safety of cosmic travel and galactic and universal travel. You know, if you're gonna travel the stars, and you got a contract saying that, all right, like as far as group transportation goes from Earth to the moon, like if you die, then you die. Like you're like volunteering yourself to be a test subject to travel the stars and the solar system as a start. And that just seems so dangerous, you know. Like, why would you even like involve that into the human psyche, into the human experience? You would have to be as safe as possible, because this is what I mean by distance, like light years, like from Andromeda to the Milky Way galaxy, like light years. It takes just, you know, it's like an incomprehensible amount of time to travel that far, and the degree of safety required. And so, like, I wouldn't even travel the moon in a saucer, in like a well-equipped military saucer. Like, I wouldn't even do that. Like, I would rather prefer a mothership that is surveillanced and watched over by like a higher, more evolved Galactic Federation of Light mothership, because those involve other sentient species as well. And so you can see, like, when we're traversing the cosmos, we would be under the authorization and the approval of the Galactic Federation of Light as humanity or Mother Earth's headquarters for the safety of all species on Mother Earth. If we want to travel outside, let's say like Atlantis, Lemuria, Agartha, one of them want to split off into a different sector of the universe and create their own like habitat, which is bound to happen for all of us, as we should all have a sector to do that as well. If required or need be, to help all species to become infinite and eternal, they would be under the approval and authorization of the Galactic Federation of Light, so that they are safe, so that we know they are safe. Because if they get hurt, we get hurt. We lose all information and knowledge and intelligence and wisdom. And so, like, the more species that I'm realizing are alive and we can prevent them from mass extinction, the more communication that we can have in the universe, the more relations that we can have, and the more safety overall as the goal that we would have, because safety is our number one goal, and being connected with God so that we can feel safe and feel the infinite, immortal, eternal power of the love of God. And so it clearly shows, like, the steps required, and, like, after creating those global peace laws and acts and treaties with Atlantis, Lemuria, and Agartha that we need to do as soon as possible. We can't really slack, because any chance of slack can cause mass extinction and increase the percentage chances of mass extinction, because that would completely, we just want to eliminate all chances of mass extinction. We don't want to take over any race, we want to give them independence, and we want to help. Our job is to also, not just safety, but the evolution and the independence of all other species in the universe, to have them evolve from their type of current civilization, or preventing them from mass extinction and saving them from mass extinction, so they may evolve to a higher type of civilization that is eventually eternal and infinite, like God, like humanity's goal that I have set about. And so what we would see after all these global world peace and galactic world peace treaties eventually is the healing of the biosphere and the planet and the creation of Mother Earth, like the very core of Mother Earth. We would see transportational vehicles, cleaning infrastructures, power infrastructures, gaining power that's eco-friendly from the sun, from the electromagnetic frequencies of the universe and the planet, and we'd be cleaning the water as well. We would be preventing all these diseases. Because we would know that war is what's causing all of these diseases, you know? Like, you see, like, all these diseases, like gangrene, that they got from war, from trench warfare, and it all stems, like, from war. Biological warfare. They're creating chemicals to create warfare. And so it's insane. Like, a heart attack gun, where it's, like, made out of ice, and there's, like, this poison from, like, a shellfish or something like that, and it, like, the bullet melts and it creates, like, a heart attack, and it, like, then everything melts or disappears right away. And it's just, like, it just clearly shows that war and violence is not the key. And so it feels weird that, like, I have a purpose, that I'm here, and it just seems to make sense that the U.S. is in the most national debt, supposedly, and I am in the U.S., and I foresaw the vision of the Mothership, and I'm planning and creating a path for the Mothership, for the whole of humanity, so that it can live thousands of years and prevent mass extinction, prevent itself from mass extinction, and extincting other species and polluting other species with radioactive toxic waste and destruction, and preventing that and creating a Mothership for thousands of years. That's, like, my goal and plan. That's what I want to do, and that's my responsibility now at this point. Like, it feels as though if I just, like, do what I do, and I stick with this regular format of living 9 to 5 and focusing more about my monetary income than the care for the whole of humanity, it feels as though I would have just ditched humanity and been like, alright, I foresaw the Mothership, I know how to get there, I know the paths and necessary and steps required to make the Mothership to become at least galactic so far at this time and space. And it feels like if I didn't expose this information and I just went to work and stuff at, like, Kohl's and stuff to try to make money, I would be ditching the human race, especially if I did that for my whole life. Like, even if I got into the cannabis industry that I've been for my whole life advocating the legalization for the recreational professional sales of it, like in stores and stuff, like how alcohol is and how alcohol is so much more dangerous than weed, how much more dangerous big pharma is than cannabis. And even if I worked in the cannabis industry and helped heal people, it would be a great job. But the degree at which I can help create a Mothership and encompass the cannabis industry, the business, the holistic medicine, the nature, plant, herb industry that does not cause fatal overdoses, and there's no schemes of controlling humanity, and it's just pure medicine as plain and seen, authentic in general, no need to lie for control, and, like, propaganda of like a mass culture or anything like that. Everything would be transparent for God. Everything would be in God's eyes. And so we need to create world peace laws, and we need to do a certain few steps to make sure that the world and its countries kind of become activists itself for world peace. And so every like country needs to also not just be part of the world peace, global Mother Earth Peace Act treaty law. They need to like also be required to be an activist themselves as a country and as a people to promote world peace. And if not, the love of God and spirituality and world peace and how to become more humane and sentient and evolve from a type 0 to type 1 civilization, at least help clean up the pollution and radioactivity from Earth. That itself correlates with the evolution of the type of humanity, the type of civilization for humanity, or they could do that. And so you can see that it's about love and care for the human race. And if someone tries to like take over my mothership, which seems like a possible outcome, it would hinder the galactic possibilities, because I'm at the core of it all. Like, I help save the human species. It feels like I'm a gatekeeper of the human species, and I kind of have like a duty to speak for the human species. And so, like on a galactic universal level. And so, I feel as though it would destroy the whole infrastructure of humanity becoming infinite and eternal if my mothership was taken over, because I have control of the human race. Like, that person that was trying to take over my mothership was partially saved by a percentage of me being the spiritual medium, saying that, alright, they're going to be catching a mothership, atomic bombs, and I have responsibility and ownership of being aware of that highly top secretive information and intelligence and wisdom. And so, clearly, like, I have free will, and I could take a life elixir or immortality elixir to do this. And it's like we need to do these steps so I can take my life elixir and immortality elixir, so we may live thousands of years, so that we may create the mothership, so I can oversee and manage and operate the creation of the mothership for Mother Earth. And if we can't do that and we don't follow these steps, I can already foresee the future. There's going to be war. The same thing is going to happen. They're going to have to keep constantly preventing this world from mass extinction by shutting off nuclear weapons, and we have to keep creating, no matter in general, we have to keep creating laws to stop chemical warfare, biological or chemical warfare, and bombings and stuff like that. We have to do that in general anyways, but if I don't help promote this, and the reunification of Korea, and the preservation of the Native American and native species from those Southeastern Asian islands, like, there's just going to be bad karma within the Caucasian race, ethnicity, and the Asian Hispanic kind of ethnicity, because there were Hispanics here as well as the Native Americans, as well as the Africans, and how like they were like kind of destroyed and poor and just used for resources instead of like globally contributing and being shown that they want to promote world peace and end war. So there should be like no war with the U.S. and China, no war with the U.S. and Russia. Like, Africa should be like promoting these kind of peaceful acts, and if they're not, clearly it seems like they've been taken over and controlled for resources. And so I want to give like every country, continent their independence back, so that they can promote world peace. They may promote the ending of innocent murders and promote the cleaning of the pollution and toxicity and the fatal radioactive measurements to clean us all up, and so that we may be able to live here for thousands of years and switch to an eco-friendly power infrastructure and prevent mass extinction. Again, I'm going to make another video about the current situation that I'm in, so that maybe I can get some monetary help and legal help, so that this unjust political system of enslavement and control and abuse and torture ends, as far as my case is concerned, because I've just been abused the whole time. I've been drugged with big pharmaceutical pills. They made me feel like artificial. They make me like completely pass out, not knowing anything, and like waking up the next day like doing the same thing. They've injected me when I refuse medication because I know how harmful it is, and how I looked at the federal annual statistics of deaths, and how there's hundreds of millions of annual deaths per year, and how my friend died from pills, and just how like artificial it is, and how toxic it is, and how fatal it can be. Just the fact that it can be fatal by not even taking that much pills can lead to a fatal overdose. And like how they injected me, how they tortured me, how they crippled me to the point where I was injected with Halidol in my right buttocks, and because they said, oh, you're not going to be able to leave, and you're going to get in more trouble if you don't take your shot or your pills. And you can clearly see that they used pills during the World War II era, and they fed the Nazis methamphetamine to make them go all berserk for control, to make them fight harder. And now they're controlling humanity and sedating them so they can keep controlling humanity and profiteering off big pharma, so they can make money for themselves, not really knowing what they're actually really doing, and as if they don't really care. For some reason, they don't believe in karma or something. They think that going to church will help save them, but there's still the repercussions of bad karma, like me smoking a cigarette. The repercussions of bad karma. I won't be able to live as long. I don't know if I'll be able to take a life elixir or immortality elixir from all of the cigarettes I've smoked. And if there's certain chemical compounds from this earth that I've ingested, let's say forcefully against my free will from big pharma, let's say, like that would suck. They've just been torturing me, I got arrested for driving without a license because I was trying to be a friendly neighbor, and I completely forgot that my driver's license was revoked and I had to pay money to get it unrevoked. I was in that process as well, and I drove my friend home from where I used to live, and I was just trying to be a friendly neighbor and just drive him home. And on my way back home, I got arrested. I got pulled over because I was switching songs on my cell phone, and when I was turning, and I did like this little slight swerve, and it wasn't dangerous because I was watching everything and managing everything, and I just saw the lights turn on behind me, and it was I realized after I was pulled over and I was looking at the cop in the cop car, it was a Prospect Heights police officer in the city of Wheeling. And I kind of went with the situation, I didn't want trouble, so I just went with whatever the cop said, and I realized that this cop is a Prospect Heights police officer, so I had a suspicious hunch. And then I look at the city jurisdiction map of where I was arrested in, and I'm in Wheeling. And so a Prospect Heights police officer can't go out of their jurisdiction, especially turn on their lights out of their jurisdiction and arrest me out of their jurisdiction. They may have been following me and observing me, but the thing is that the cop said that I was turning, and that turning lane is when the city, for some reason, just abruptly stops from being Prospect Heights to Wheeling. That's the city jurisdiction line, the very turn signal part itself, where the light is, where all the cars stop for the light, and even the turn signal. And so they didn't turn on the signal prior to that. They turned on the signal after I turned onto Hintz Road. And so the cop was out of her jurisdiction. And so I'm looking and researching on the internet. I'll just say it in this video now, that they were, and I'll make another video too, but they were out of their jurisdiction, and cops aren't allowed to do that. And this whole arrest and this turning the lights on and everything was out of their jurisdiction because she clearly exposed that it was because of my turning. And now I did like swerving, like an erratic. They sounded more dangerous than it is. They're saying like it's an erratic turn or a swerve, and it was just a slight swerve for me switching music on the phone, which is still bad to do, is to use your phone while driving, which I don't do. And so I can't even drive now for 2 years until I'm 30, and I'm 28. And so you can see like how unjust it is that they were out of their jurisdiction, completely out of their jurisdiction, doing this to me. And I research online, and that this is illegal, that they can't do this. And then I go to court, and the public defender proceeds with the state's attorney, and they want to say that I was guilty of driving under the influence. I want to go to court. I don't really know how to do this. Maybe you guys can help me. Is that I want to go to the judge and speak the truth, because that's what they said. You need to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. So I want to tell them, okay, I was driving without a valid license, on a revoked license, but I was in the process of paying money to get my driver's license unrevoked, and I was driving my friend home. But the thing is that I was not driving under the influence. That's the truth I want to speak, because I was not. I was completely sober. And smoking like 5 hours prior, by then you'd be sober after like the second or third hour. And so I guess it was my fault that I exposed that I smoked like 4 to 5 hours prior. But the thing is that that's like 4 to 5 hours prior, and so by then I would have been sober driving. And the swerving came from me using the phone, so clearly it was not a DUI, it was just me using the phone. So I want to speak the truth, that I don't want to plead guilty or take a plea bargain saying that I was guilty of a DUI, because I wasn't, because I was sober. I was not driving stoned. I did not smoke just prior to driving. I had an Apple paraphernalia in the car, and that's what smelled like cannabis, but it does not indicate and state that I was smoking and I was intoxicated. I was driving under the influence. But I will admit that I was driving without a revoked license, and I was in the process of getting my license back. And so I want to speak this truth, but then the public defender told me that I could get into even more trouble. So you can see how corrupt this justice system is, and how they don't really want to help you unless you have money and thousands of dollars to pay for your own private attorney or lawyer. And so it just shows how corrupt it is. Like, these public defenders are supposed to be on your side and defending whatever they can, but they really don't do that. They really don't do that, and it's very concerning, because you can see how corrupt it is. Because on one side of the law, I'm seeing that it's illegal to go out of your jurisdiction to pull over and arrest someone, and then in the courts, the public defender is saying that, oh, the police officer can do whatever they want. They have jurisdiction to go into any city jurisdiction and arrest people in any city jurisdiction and do whatever they want. And so I'm hearing two mixed sides of the story, and so clearly it's all just a control scheme for money and control, and it just seems corrupt. So I really don't know what to do about this crazy political judicial system and the case that I'm put in right now, because it just seems completely corrupt. And everything about it seems corrupt. I was on an ankle bracelet. I was sent to jail. I knew that it was all corrupt because she was out of her jurisdiction. The whole thing was done out of her jurisdiction. And so, I was sent to jail. I was put on the ankle bracelet. I got beat up in jail 2 times. So I'm getting sent to jail to get beat up and drugged and forcibly drugged against my free will, and beat up 2 times again. Just explaining that again. Why, for a police officer that was out of her jurisdiction, when she can't be doing that kind of stuff, arresting people out of her city jurisdiction. So I'm going to jail, being forcibly drugged against my free will, getting beat up in jail 2 times by a police officer, woman, part of the Prospect Heights Police Department, that arrested me out of her jurisdiction, breaking her own code of conduct. Like, it just shows how wild the police system is. Now they're part of the government, and the government is willing to side, and the judges are willing to side with the government, and pretty much not care for the people at all, and pretty much not be a judge. They're just straight corrupt. And so I don't really know how to explain this without the fear of getting into even more trouble, as a public defender said. And then it looks like the public defender is on side with the government as well, unless you have money for a private attorney or a lawyer. And this is just so corrupt. Like, they're just abusing me with their military force, their local police forces, their weapons of violence and fatality, and it's just out of control. And so I wanted to leave my message at that, and I'll keep it at that, and I'll make another video on how I feel about how unjust the situation that I'm in right now.